We started the last podcast with a mention of Don Canodle, who just passed away, and a couple of days ago, someone else has just passed away in the wrestling fraternity, but at least this time he was 90 years old, which might as well be like 1,000 in wrestling years. Tony Marino. What do you remember of Tony Marino? Because I believe he wrestled in Hawaii.
He was in Hawaii, and I was in Florida. I remember I was in Florida with him, and he was a good guy. He was an old bodybuilder that started working under the Sheik, I believe, or at least in the Detroit area, and then traveled around the United States and probably Japan and a few other places internationally. But one thing, he was a good guy. I was always up front, always fun to talk with, always fun to be with. But I'll never forget him. He was one of the Fort Hesterly Armory on a Tuesday night, the normal wrestling for Tuesday night Tampa wrestling at Fort Hesterly. Oh, maybe between 4,000 to 6,000 people. Probably around 6,000 was a sellout, and 4,000 to 6,000, and Dusty Rhodes, Jack Briscoe, Eddie Graham, Mike Graham, Steve Kern, that whole Malenko, that whole group that they took care. But I remember about Tony, and one of the funniest things I ever saw in the business. He was in a tag. I don't remember who his partner was, but I remember Jerry Briscoe was on the other team. And Jerry Briscoe's boom, boom, coming back. And the Briscoes are left-handed anyway. So Briscoe threw that big looping left hand. And Tony always said, don't hit watch the hair. Jerry threw that big looping left hand. And evidently it caught Tony just well. Woo! Off his head came the toupee, and it was a good sized one. And just took off across, looked like Rocky the Flying Squirrel. And just took off across the wrestlers and everybody stand up in the balcony there watching. The wrestlers, the fans, everybody in the building just broke down. And he's chasing to get his piece back. And they never got the match. I think had another match or two before they could finally get the crowd back down from that hair flying off. But that's one thing I'll always remember. I'll always remember Tony Marino, that and Mike York with the bear. But that's one of the highlights of my career.
Was he a bad guy at the time? Because that would have been just the best thing to do in the arena every single night is just lose your hair.
Yeah, he was a heel. But he wasn't. He was like Angelo Poffo, and some of those guys, don't touch. They didn't want to lose their hair. They were very self-conscious over their hair. Because I got the piece on me, watch. And in those days, we worked like that. You had something, you had a sore eye or something. I could stay away from it. I wouldn't have to, or I could work on it, and you wouldn't know it either. That's how work used to be.
Right, so give me a few other wrestling wig wearers. So I know Bruno Sammartino wore that thatch bird's nest on his head for a while.
Oh man!
Stan Lane from the Midnight Express, he tried out for a little bit and he ended up getting sewn into his head or something, and then got it taken out.
Oh really? I didn't know.
I believe Cowboy Bob Ellis. Am I going crazy there? I think he wore a wig at one point.
I never came across Bob. And I asked somebody if what kind of worker, what kind of guy he was. They said he was a hell of a guy and a big draw. Because I remember him from the magazines and stuff. And Wahoo McDaniels, he didn't have Wahoo and a couple. They used to use the shoe polish. Use the shoe polish on their head, not to. And if you didn't know, sometimes you get a headlock on, you come out and you're all covered in shoe polish. But Wahoo, a couple, Tex McKenzie, he was one crazy about his hair as well.
Are there any other confirmed wig wearers you can reveal?
Oh God, not offhand. Nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Okay then. Batman. Tony Marino was Batman with two T's. Did you ever experience the Batman?
No, that was up in Detroit. That's when he was up in Detroit, I think. Detroit and Canada, Ontario and Hamilton, those areas. I believe. I'm not sure.
Pittsburgh, I believe he had his biggest success in there. And as well, it's the thing that people always throw in Bruno Sammartino's face, where he always said, I hate gimmick wrestlers, I hate gimmick wrestlers. He was tag team champions with Batman.
Yeah, he was one of Bruno's boys out of Pittsburgh with Dominic and Mike Cicluna and a few of those other guys. And Bruno had that little territory going over in the Pittsburgh area.
Did you ever wrestle in the Pittsburgh area for Sammartino?
Not for Sammartino, no. Yeah, that was gone. He was in a war with the McMahons during when I first came in, and he was they denied him that he wanted that, just that Western Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania into West Virginia, and there was a bunch of towns all within 150 miles of Pittsburgh that had good, coal mining towns that had, good populations, good buildings to run in, and you could make if you had a crew of 12, 16 guys, you could make them a decent living, weekly money with the blow off in Pittsburgh, I suppose. George Steele, Tom Myers started there, I think. Or he started in Detroit, but he worked, did a lot, went to Pittsburgh a lot for Bruno.
And the last question for Tony Marino. I mean, when I first heard it, I thought Tony Marino from Saturday Night Fever, but apparently that's not his name anyway. But do you know who played Robin to Tony Marino's Batman? No one seems to know.
I didn't know there was one. Bruno, I guess.